Right guys, so I figured I'd give you a review here of the Specialty Motorsports SyncroDrive I got on my sled here. It's a 2018 Freeride Gen 4 850. She's 154 with the 2.5-inch track. Didn't see a whole lot out there in terms of reviews on the Specialty Motorsports belt drive. Saw a lot on the TKI. So I figured I'd just jam together a little video there for anyone like myself who was a little bit curious around the fence to go the Specialty Motorsports route. Give you an idea of what it is and my thoughts on it. So I guess I'll touch on why I went the belt drive route. I guess the thing that really kicked it off for me last season there, I was out west on a trip and ended up touching the roll down. Anyone who's familiar with the Gen 4s, the roll downs are pretty well the lowest point there by the track that accommodate the brake rotor and the chain case. But I touched the chain case side off a stump and drove it up, pinching in the outer cover of the chain case. Pretty well figured it was going to be a day ender for me. I was kind of waiting to see oil drop down, but I was lucky enough that I didn't break that outer case or the inner case, and was able to ride her for the rest of the season actually without any issue. But after that happened, you know, it was easy to see that that could have been a long tow out for me that day. So it kind of got my my brain moving on the belt drive. Started researching them a little bit more. The reason I went especially Motorsports, I guess, route with it, TKI seems to be the really popular one. A lot of the guys are running on Dutok. For me to get the TKI, I'm up here in Canada, so exchange would pretty well kill me by the time I got it here with a couple extra belts. It was going to be pretty costly. So I had to look at Specialty Motorsports SyncroDrive. They're actually formerly C3. I believe Specialty bought out C3. So that used to be the C3 SyncroDrive. I had a couple of C3 products in the past. I know a post-forward kit I had on my old XP Summit, and I was pretty pleased with the quality and the fit and finish of the parts. So figured I'd give Specialty a try, and I was pretty happy with the outcome. I guess I'll give you a rundown on the installation there now. Like you see with the panel on, there's really not much to be said about it. You can tell there's something different with it just because the different bottom portion of the case there. Once you haul the panel off, you get to see the meat of it. The belt is a open design, so it's not sealed up. You can say pop it off, you can see it pretty easy there. I was a little bit concerned first because you can see it's not sealed down around your running board, so you can get snow and water in there. But I talked to the folks up especially. Apparently that's not a concern. I only have one run on this. Just in the past few days, a little spring ride, only one day of riding, so about 150 clicks on it, and I didn't have any issues. But I'll get to that a little bit later. In terms of installation, nothing too complicated with it. The instructions especially provide you with more than ample enough to get you through it easily. Took me about 3 or 4 hours start to finish, just added off and on. I guess the worst of that is just draining down your old oil from the oil and chain setup. Once you pop the outer case off, drain your oil down. You want to give it a good clean out, get any oil residue out there. Check your top and bottom bearing. Make sure there's no oil intrusion in the grease. If there is, get a good quality grease, repack them. Once you get that done, then it's just a matter of popping the top and bottom sprockets on and the tensioner assembly. So the top sprocket is just held in with a longer version of the shaft bolt, and then the 8 Allen heads actually go into the gear and retain it and keep on this I guess what I'll call a belt sheave or a belt keeper for the top gear there. The bottom gear, obviously you can't see it, it's just held in with a taper lock, and once your taper lock is in and down, you put in the new speed pickup that Specialty provides you with, because you don't use the factory one. And like I said, actual speed sensors then built into the new bottom portion of the setup. So yeah, once you get that on, you're going to go to the belt tension. I guess that's the critical part of the whole installation. I can run through that there with you. So the big thing when you're setting your belt tension up first, you're going to want to, again, you can't see that bottom gear, but you're going to want to rotate that track around to make sure that your belt cogs are meshed into the teeth of the gear down below. You can't really see it too good just because of the profile of the running board, but you won't be able to see the bottom half of that gear, and 9 chances out of 10 the belt is going to sit on top of the teeth on the gear. So as soon as you rotate your track, say if you just set the tension up after you put it in and try to go on your way, once the belt meshes into those teeth, it's going to run a lot looser, so it's going to throw your tension off, and you're probably going to bust your belt. Obviously, you just put a belt drive on your sled. You don't want to get 2 or 3 kilometers from your camp and have your belt blow up. So definitely rotate that track. That'll allow the belt teeth to mesh into the gear teeth, or belt cogs, I guess, to mesh into the gear teeth, and you'll be able to set your tension up proper then. So once you rotate the track around, I think the instructions say 12 to 24 inches. So I just rotated it by hand a little bit, make sure it was in there good. You're going to want to use your factory tension adjuster, just with the, you can see your 17 mil knot here loose. You want to tension that in until what they say is this red marker here. You'll line up the red marker with the outer edge of the belt. And you want to run it tight enough so about what force you got in your finger there to push it in, it'll deflect the width of that marker. That's what they're calling proper belt tension. You want to set it up in the warm. They recommend, like say, 20 degrees just in your shop. You don't want to set them up cold, because obviously as the belt gets warm, it's going to change the tension adjustment. So as long as you got it set up on that marker there, you should be good to go. I took it for a run after. Once I went across the island and took it on the snow, I didn't have to make any adjustments to the belt. Tension stayed fine the whole trip. No issues there. So what I thought about the kit after I got it on the snow, like I said previous there, I only got 1 ride in on this so far. Just a 1-day trip over to the west coast. Little spring ride. But I gotta go back to work next week, so that's pretty well the end of my season. But when I got over there, I got about 150 clicks on this setup. Took the first 40 or 50 a little bit easy there, just to feel her out, make sure there was no issues with it, nothing loosening off, or see if I could work the gremlins out of it, I guess. Didn't have any issues with the whole trip. I checked on the tension there a couple of times during the first run. I know it says 3 or 4 times during the day you should check it. I checked it out a few times on the run. The tension maintained, like you say, throughout the whole trip, and nothing loosened off. Torque values were all good. Marked all the Allen heads and the top bolt there, just to make sure I could see if they did back off. No issues with it at all. Tension was maintained good. Once, like I say, I got a little bit more confidence in it, made sure it was all good. We took it for a go run then the next day and ripped on it a little bit, in and out of trees and some steeper and deeper stuff. Snow conditions were a little bit on and off, so couldn't get a true test of it, but we got into some fresh stuff later on and really ripped around on it, and I didn't get a hiccup out of the belt drive. Quite liked it actually. You can hear it whine pretty good, so that's a little bit different of a noise, but I thought it sounded pretty good. And in terms of any real performance gains, you know, I probably wouldn't go at this this change here for any performance gains. Before I was running pretty well dead on 7,900 RPM, maxed out on load. When I put the belt drive on, I got a couple of good pulls in some deeper fresh stuff, and I did see 8,100 repeating up there for top RPM loaded up. So maybe there is a little bit of gain on the RPM. I don't really feel you're going to get a whole lot. You might have to adjust your clickers a little bit if you really want to run on 7,900 dead on. But you know, I'd say any gain is really negligible for performance wise. I thought the throttle response was a little bit better. Now I think a lot of that is probably going to be in your head. These 850s are pretty responsive anyway, but it seemed a little bit better. But like you say, I wouldn't go at this belt drive for the performance aspect of it. For me, it was more so the ability to change a belt out if you're ever unfortunate enough to bust one up. Last trip over to the west coast there, we had a buddy on a 16 Freeride, and he ended up popping his chain in the back country and ended up having to get tow out. And we were places earlier that day that a tow out really wouldn't have been possible, so you're putting yourself in a tough situation there. You know, for the sake of a belt, you're really only going to be 15 or 20 minutes changing the belt out the backcountry versus trying to get a tow out, or tow out always isn't going to be possible. So I mean, that alone, that was the real big motivator for me to go the belt drive route. In terms of any negatives with the Specialty Motorsports SyncroDrive, can't really think of much. The only thing I ran into, this sled has shot from the factory. So the factory setup of the shot has it mounted right here on top of the chain case outer cover. I believe TKI uses a mount off the tensioner assembly here to mount the shot back in the factory location, right just after the exhaust can there. What Specialty Motorsports does, they recommend you relocate the shot underneath the hood, and you can't really see it there, but on the frame spar that runs down to your shock towers, just pop 2 holes in that and rivet the shot on. I didn't really like that solution because you're limiting yourself, then you can't change out the shot. You'd have to drill out the rivets and that, and you're mounted pretty close to the connection between your pipe and your can. Also, you're pretty well placed in the shot directly above the Y pipe, so you're going to get some extra heat on it for sure. So what I ended up doing, I reached out to MVM Motorsports. They also offer a belt drive for this machine. And what they do, they have a relocation kit as well, but it comes with 2 brackets. So you just bolt the brackets onto your frame spares, and it pretty well puts the shot, you can't see it here because there's too much going on, but it puts the shot right above the motor. So it's a more solid, I think, approach to relocating it. I'm sure there's nothing wrong with the Specialty Motorsports relocate. It's, there's less parts involved. But I like the MVM one better myself, just to give it a nice solid mounting point above the motor and out of the way of any excess heat. Beyond that, I really had no complaints with the kit. Obviously, it's a lot of quality parts here. The fit and finish is excellent. Installation went together really well. I really got nothing else bad to say about it. The shop bit, I'd say, is more so me being picky than anything else, but figured it's worth mentioning. But the belt drive, after having a lot of people ask me since I said I put it on the sled, was, how hard is this to change out if I do bust the belt in backcountry? Is it going to be a major pain? Is it going to be worth doing? Like I said before, I've been back there when a riding buddy has broke a chain. It's not really a spot you want to be at when you're looking for a tow out. So the ability just to change the belt itself, I think, is a huge one. In terms of changing the belt, like I say, I only got 1 run in on it. I haven't busted a belt, but I did go through the motions of changing one just so I'd be confident to do it when I went over if I was unfortunate enough to have it happen. It's not a big deal. It's probably only going to take you 15-20 minutes with the right tools. If you take off the whole bottom cover here, you're just going to want a 5mm Allen head. You can see the bolts there. Pop the whole bottom cover off and remove all the bits of the old belt, slip your new belt on the bottom. The top there, you might be able to slip the belt on over the belt keeper on the top gear, but it's probably going to be pretty frustrating even with the tensioner backed all the way out. It might be pretty tough to slip it on over there. I ended up taking the keeper off when I went through the motions of it. I found it a bit easier, so for the sake of the little bit of time it's going to take those Allen heads out, I'd probably go ahead and do it. It'll save you a lot of cursing, especially in the backcountry if you had to do it. Once you get that on, you'll just run through the motions, tensioning your belt. Like I said before, the big thing is rotating that track around. So you make sure your belt is meshed into the teeth of the gear on the bottom gear. And set your tension up. Your belt is probably going to be cold, so take it for a little run, be easy on it, get the belt warmed up, and recheck your tension to make sure you're running proper. It should be away you go. Like you say, that's a lot better than starting to have the lash tow ropes on and tow your machine the long trek back out. Mention too, the other thing I done when I did go through the motions of replacing the belt, instead of taking the full back case off, you can also just take the outer cover off of the bottom case there with these small Allen heads. It's a couple of more bolts. I found it a little bit easier than taking the whole bottom cover off, just trying to fit it in there. It fits in pretty snug. So just taking that outer cover off, I found it a little bit easier, but either way should work for you. In terms of a wrap up, I guess that's it. From installation to having to change the belt out, my thoughts on it. certainly I wouldn't hesitate to go with Specialty Motorsports SyncroDrive again, or any of their products really. The folks were great there from start to finish. And like I said, it really is a quality product. Fit and finish is great. And it's a good end result. So if you guys have any questions about this setup at all, if you're wondering anything else, you can certainly leave a comment below, or reach out to the guys at Specialty Motorsports. They'll be able to get you on your way, or answer any questions you might have about it as well. But if you're looking for a belt drive on your machine and you're in Canada, certainly definitely worth a call to these guys to get you set up and on your way.